This happened a few days ago. I was back in my childhood home, the place where I used to listen to storms. My dad was sick, and I felt I needed to be there. I wouldn't say I was scared of storms, but something about that house always felt off, especially when the wind started to roar. The first night, the wind howled like an angry beast outside. I tried to focus on my writing, but then I heard it. Faint murmurs came from the empty bedroom upstairs. I thought it was just the wind sneaking through the old windows. But as the storm worsened, I swear the whispers grew clearer. My heart began to race. I wasn't sure what to make of it. The next day, I went up to the attic. I rummaged through boxes and found old newspaper clippings. They were about strange happenings in our house over the years. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I brushed it off. I had stories to write, and I didn't want to dwell on the past. Still, those stories lingered in my mind like shadows. That night, the storm hit harder. Thunder cracked like a whip. It shook the walls. I heard the whispers again, names calling out to me. It sent a prickle down my spine. I really thought maybe I was losing it. I decided to stay awake, hoping to catch the wind making those sounds. Around midnight, I heard a voice call my name. It was soft, almost gentle. I thought I was imagining things, but then it called my name again, louder this time. I felt a cold sweat on my brow. I stood up, my clothes suddenly heavy. Maybe the weight of the past pressed on me. As I made my way to the stairs leading up to that empty room, my heart thumped louder in my chest. When I stood in front of the door, everything went quiet. A strange calm washed over me. I felt something was wrong but didn't know what it was. I knocked softly, almost hoping my father would answer. Then I heard it again, my name, clear and urgent, urging me to come inside. I reached for the doorknob. The metal felt icy against my skin. Nothing could prepare me for what I found when I opened that door. Inside was darkness. I stepped forward, just one step, when a voice said, "Why are you here?" My heart raced. I spun around, expecting someone to be behind me. But I was alone. The storm raged outside, but it felt like the shadows had come alive inside that room. I didn't know what to do. I just stood there, frozen, imprisoned by those whispers. They were relentless, echoing in my mind. I still wonder about those voices, what they wanted. I didn't stay long. I backed away slowly, keeping the door open. I could still hear the rain outside and the whispers, but now they felt distant, like a memory. That night, I couldn't sleep. The questions lingered, unanswered, each whisper a reminder of what had been. I knew returning home would force me to confront the past. But I didn't expect it to speak back. The next morning, I woke late, the sun filtering hesitantly through the storm clouds. I had tossed and turned all night, haunted by the whispers that refused to fade. Determined to regain some control, I went downstairs to help my dad. He was sitting in his chair, wrapped in a blanket, staring out the window. "Hey, Dad," I said, trying to sound cheerful. He didn't respond right away, lost in thought. I could feel the heaviness in the air, even without the storm. "Did you sleep?" he finally asked, turning to look at me. His eyes were weary, shadows lurking beneath. "Not really." I forced a smile. "Just the storms keeping me up." He nodded, almost knowingly. "They have a way of bringing things to the surface, don't they?" I stared at him, searching for meaning in his words. "Do you hear them too?" He looked away, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. After breakfast, I decided I needed to get answers. I headed to the local library, hoping for some clarity. The librarian greeted me with a smile, but it faded once I mentioned my family home. "Oh, that place has quite the history," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "People used to talk about strange sights and sounds there." I could feel my hands growing clammy. "What kind of sounds?" "Mostly whispers." Some say they could hear names. Others felt watched. She shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting towards the window. Be careful. The storm doesn't just bring rain. Her words echoed in my mind as I left the library, but I wasn't ready to go back home yet. I drove through the town, searching for anything that could explain what I was experiencing. Then I saw a small graveyard tucked behind an old church. Curiosity pulled me in. As I walked among the worn stones, I felt the air shift. I stopped in front of an old, cracked headstone. My pulse quickened. The name on it was familiar. Mary. My grandmother. I knelt down, digging through the dirt around the base. Beneath a layer of soil, I found a rusted locket. I opened it, and my breath hitched. Inside was a picture of my grandmother, and on the opposite side was a folded piece of paper. I carefully unfolded it. It was a list of names. Names I had heard calling me. Panic flooded my veins. I looked around, suddenly aware of the shadows creeping towards me. I needed to get back to the house. I had to confront what was there. On the drive back, the sky darkened, and I could feel the storm brewing again. My heart raced with each rumble of thunder. When I reached the house, hesitation crept in. The whispers loomed in my mind, louder now. They grew more insistent. I stepped inside, gripping the locket tightly. Then, from the empty room upstairs, I heard it again, my name, urgent and filled with longing. As I climbed the stairs, every instinct told me to turn back. But I pushed open the door. This time, the darkness felt alive, wrapping around me like a cloak. I'm here, I whispered, bracing myself for whatever awaited me. That's when everything went dark. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust. The darkness felt heavy, suffocating. My heart hammered in my chest, echoing in the silence around me. Then, a faint glow flickered in the corner of the room. I squinted, trying to figure out what it was. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing me closer. As I approached, I realized it was the locket. It had opened in my grip, illuminating the names inside. I could feel a warmth radiating from it, countering the cold that filled the room. Mary? I whispered, hoping for some kind of response. Instead, the whispers heightened, a chorus of voices swirling around me. They were closer now, piercing through the quiet, weaving past the barriers between my reality and theirs. Help us, one voice pleaded, and the chill crept along my spine. I turned, half expecting to see something there, but the room remained empty. Anxiety coiled tightly in my stomach. I backed away, unable to shake the sensation of being watched. Then, I noticed something on the floor, a dusty old book half hidden under the bed. I bent down to pick it up. The leather cover was worn and cracked, but I could make out the title, The Echoes of Our Past. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The pages were yellowed and frayed, filled with entries documenting strange occurrences throughout the years. I flipped through them, but my breath caught when I found a page with a name scrawled across it, Mary Thompson. It wasn't just my grandmother's name, it was my name too, scribbled in the same handwriting. Suddenly, the whispers grew frantic, urging me to look deeper, to uncover the truth that had been buried. I felt a surge of determination mixed with fear. I needed to know what had happened to Mary, what connection tied us to this house. As I searched for more answers in the book, the air around me grew thicker. The lights flickered, and shadows danced along the walls. I could hear the wind howling outside, trapped in a storm that mirrored the turmoil within. That's when the door slammed shut behind me, rattling on its hinges. I flinched and spun around, heart racing. I pressed against the wall, my breath shallow. A low voice filled the room, definite and strong. You shouldn't have come here. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. Who was that? I didn't dare move, too afraid of what might happen next. What do you want? I managed to choke out, my voice barely rising above a whisper. There was silence for a moment, and then the air shifted again. The whispers began to merge into one clear voice, louder than before. Find the truth, or lose yourself. Just then, the lights died completely, plunging me into darkness. I reached for the locket instinctively, feeling the warmth pulse against my palm. But would it be enough? I needed to get out of the room. I took a deep breath and fumbled toward the door, but as I reached for the handle, I felt a cold, clammy hand grip my wrist. Stay, the voice commanded, sending a jolt of terror through me. Before I could react, everything slipped away. The darkness closed in, and I was left wondering if I would ever find my way back. When the darkness faded, I found myself in a completely different room. Panic surged through me as I realized I was no longer by the bed. The air was thick and damp, and I could hear the quiet drip of water somewhere in the distance. I blinked, struggling to gather my thoughts. I was in what looked like an old cellar. The walls were lined with shelves, and jars filled with murky liquid lined the shelves, casting ghostly shapes in the weak light from a flickering bulb overhead. I took a cautious step forward, my instincts screaming at me to turn back. The whispers were still there, echoing around me. They felt louder now, more insistent. Help us, they chanted. I could almost make out more specific words, but they slipped away like smoke when I tried to focus on them. I searched for a source of the whispers. In my line of sight, I noticed a large piece of wood propped against the far wall. It was old, covered in strange symbols and markings. I walked closer, recognizing some of them from the entries in the dusty book. They were warnings or perhaps please messages from another time. But as I reached to touch the wood, the cellar door slammed shut above me, and I jumped back. It felt like the air had thickened, pressing down on me. I had trouble breathing. Hello. My voice cracked, trembling with fear. I listened closely, hoping for a sign that I wasn't alone. Suddenly, a sharp sound cut through the murmur, the unmistakable scrape of a chair sliding across the floor above me. I froze, realizing I wasn't the only one in the house. A knot of dread twisted in my stomach. What kind of presence lurked in the shadows? The locket in my pocket began to heat up, like it could sense the danger that loomed close by. I brought it out, its soft glow providing some comfort. Maybe it wouldn't just protect me, maybe it held answers. I opened it again, staring at the names with desperation. I needed to know the truth. But the whispers didn't let up. You must choose, they urged. Now. Choose what? I shouted, fury mixing with fear. What is it you want from me? The cellar fell silent, almost as if my question had momentarily stilled the echoes around me. Then I heard pounding footsteps above, heavy and threatening. My heart raced. This wasn't a game anymore. I had to decide quickly. The door was blocked, and I was trapped. I glanced back at the strange wooden piece. What secrets did it hold? Before I could think, I took a deep breath and began to scratch away at the symbols with my fingernail, desperate for answers. That S when I saw it, a small, glowing sigil beneath the scratches, pulsing in time with the locket in my hand. But just as I started to understand, the door above me burst open. A figure stood in the frame, silhouetted against the light. I told you to stay away. My hands clenched around the locket, my mind racing. Who was it? And what had I just awakened? The figure stepped into the cellar, and I could see his face now, a mix of anger and something I couldn't quite place. My heart pounded in my chest. Who are you? I blurted out, gripping the locket tightly. Just a protector, he said, his voice low and gravelly. But you've meddled where you shouldn't have. I didn't understand. What did I do? I was just what? Following the whispers. You think they want to help you? He took a step closer, the shadows stretching around him. I backed away, instinctively seeking the wall behind me for support. The sigil on the wooden piece shimmered brighter, its glow contrasting with the darkness that surrounded us. I didn't mean to intrude, I stammered. I thought it might help. Help? He laughed, but it didn't sound like a laugh at all. It was harsh, almost mocking. You don't even know what they are, do you? Anger bubbled up in me, mixing with my fear. Then tell me. What is this place? What do they want? Suddenly, the whispers intensified, swirling around us as though stirred by the tension in the air. You must choose, they chanted again. Choose, or be lost. The man's expression shifted. Now he looked worried, glancing up at the ceiling. You don't have time for this. We need to go, now. Before I could respond, strings of shimmering light erupted from the sigil I had uncovered, weaving through the room. They twisted like vines, snaking toward the cellar door. As they touched the wood, the door slammed shut again with a force that rattled the shelves around me. Why is it trying to keep us here? I asked, panic rising in my throat. It's not me you should be worried about, he replied, his face pale. It's them. The sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing in the confined space. I turned to see shadows moving closer, dark figures that seemed to crawl out of the walls. The air grew cold, and dread coiled around me like a snake. I pressed the locket against my chest, hoping it would protect me from what was coming. What do I do? I shouted over the clamor. Don't listen to them, he warned, fear etched into every line of his face. Whatever you do, don't make a choice. They'll twist your mind. Just hold on to the locket, it's the only thing that may save you. The glow from the locket intensified, casting eerie light across the cellar. I could feel the dark presence closing in, and for the first time, I felt truly afraid of my own choices. The whispers merged into a chaotic chant, drowning out my thoughts. But then, one clear voice broke through the cacophony. It was older, commanding. You must choose, and you must choose wisely. I took a deep breath, trying to find clarity among the chaos, but it felt like my mind was spinning in circles. The dark figures advanced, and I knew I had to act. What is the choice? I managed to ask, my voice nearly lost in the turmoil. And as I posed the question, the shadows flickered, revealing glimpses of terrifying choices made long ago. That's when everything went dark. I woke up to a distant sound, like the creaking of old wood. My heart raced, and I blinked rapidly, trying to orient myself. The cellar had transformed. The walls shifted, and the shadows moved like living things. I was no longer in the dark corner I remembered. Where am I? I murmured, my voice barely audible. The air felt thick, as if it were pressuring me down. I tried to push myself up, but the floor felt slick, coated in something unidentifiable. A tremor of panic rippled through me. I started to yell, but no sound escaped my mouth. The whispers returned, echoing in my mind, growing urgent. Choose, choose. Then I saw them, figures cloaked in darkness, moving closer. They weren't just shadows, they had shape, and I could make out their faces now. Their eyes glowed faintly, pinpoints of light against the void, filled with an unsettling hunger. The Protector's voice echoed through my mind, don't listen to them. But it was hard not to. The figures whispered secrets, promises of power, and the kind of knowledge I had always sought. You'll understand everything, one hissed, inching closer. No more questions. Just one choice. I clutched the locket tighter, feeling its presence as the only thing anchoring me to reality. What do you want? I shouted, desperation spiking my voice. Now it returned. But the shadows only smiled, their lips curling in ways that weren't natural. Freedom, for you, they intoned in unison, the words dripping with false comfort. The price? Just a small choice. Around me, the room flickered again, and for a heartbeat, I was somewhere else, seeing fragments of my past, moments when I had stood at a crossroads. Choices I had made, ones that haunted me. My decisions looming large, morphing into shapes of guilt and regret. With a sudden fire, I groped for something in the air. What do you mean by choose? What am I giving up? The shadows hissed, the noise building into a frenzy. It was mounting, threatening to consume my senses. You'll find out soon enough. Just choose. Before I could scream, a sudden gust of wind swept through the room, pushing me back against the wall. The locket flared brilliantly, illuminating the cellar in a pure white light. I could see the shadows recoiling, twisting away from its glow, their wrath palpable. And there, amidst the chaos, I caught sight of something familiar, an object resting on the floor beside me. The sigil, now glowing even brighter, pulsed like a heartbeat, and its connection to the locket seemed undeniable. But just as I reached for it, the darkness howled. No! It screamed, its voice suddenly fierce, losing all hint of persuasion. You must choose now. My breath quickened as the choice loomed over me. I had mere seconds to decide. Then, a realization pierced through the noise. That's when I understood. I could feel the weight of my decision pressing down on me, but I didn't have time to analyze it. The shadows were right, I needed to act. As the light from the locket flickered, I felt its warmth spur me to reach for the sigil. With a swift movement, I grabbed it off the floor. The instant my fingers brushed against its surface, a surge of energy coursed through me. It was like a jolt of electricity, igniting every nerve ending. I held it up between me and the encroaching darkness, hoping it would ward them off. The figures recoiled further, their whispers transforming into frustrated growls. You foolish child. You think that little trinket can save you? But the sigil pulsed in response, growing brighter. I could sense it resonating with the locket, a bond that filled me with a strange sense of courage. I envisioned the moments I had past decisions made, paths walked, and an unfamiliar resolve settled within my heart. What do I have to lose? I shouted into the fray. I'm tired of letting others dictate my life. The shadows seemed taken aback, their growls fading into a tense silence. Very well, one figure finally hissed. You've made your choice, but it is only the beginning. You want power? You want to know? I steeled myself. Yes. With that word, the cellar erupted into chaos. The shadows lunged forward, and the sigil and locket shone like twin stars. A portal opened in front of me, swirling like a storm of night and light. I felt a pull, a need to step through it, as the shadows howled in desperation behind me. Don't go. They cried. You'll regret it. I hesitated. But the grip of the shadows was weakening. I could feel it. My past fears, my regrets, they weren't worth the chains holding me down any longer. I had to know the truth. I leapt into the portal. For a moment, I was enveloped in a fining darkness, like being underwater, weightless. Then, suddenly, I was released, tumbling into a new space filled with strange colors and sounds. I landed hard on a cold surface, gasping for breath. As I pushed myself up, I looked around. I wasn't in the cellar anymore. I was in a different realm, one that felt alive and breathing, filled with fog that swirled menacingly. And there, standing before me, was a figure cloaked in silver, their face hidden beneath a hood. Welcome, they said, their voice resonant and intimidating. You've come for answers, but first, you must understand the choice you made. Suddenly, the reality of my situation sank in. This was far from over. I felt both excitement and fear. Who were they? What awaited me here? Before I could gather my thoughts, the figure stepped closer and whispered, "Something worse than shadows is watching you." A chill crept down my spine. I wasn't safe yet. I took a step back, my heart racing. What did they mean by something worse? The silver figure seemed to sense my fear, a slight shift of their hood indicating amusement or perhaps pity. What do you know about the shadows? I asked, trying to steady my voice. I needed answers. I couldn't just stand there and let fear dictate my actions. They are but a fragment, the figure replied, their tone calm. A reflection of fears that dwell within you. But they are not the greatest threat in this realm. My mind raced. A reflection? Did that mean I could control them somehow? I wanted to explore that thought, but the urgency in the figure's voice pulled me back. Listen closely, they urged, their gaze piercing through the dark veil of their hood. You have embarked on a path that leads to the heart of the storm. There are ancient beings here who thrive on chaos and doubt. They are waiting for someone like you. My stomach dropped. I had wanted power, but not like this. What do you mean waiting for someone like me? I demanded. Your courage has awakened them, the figure explained. They feed on determination. They see potential in your bravado, and they will come for you. There is a price to pay for the kind of power you seek. I frowned. What kind of price? The harmony of your heart and mind, they said simply. If you lose that, you lose yourself. I shivered, the weight of their suggestion settling over me like fog. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that I could handle anything as long as I had the sigil and the locket. But doubt crept in, a creeping shadow of its own. Before I could respond, a low rumble echoed through the fog, shaking the ground beneath me. A crack split the air, followed by a flash of vivid light. I instinctively shielded my eyes. When I glanced back, I gasped. Emerging from the swirling mist were creatures that looked like nightmares made flesh. Tall, gnarled figures with elongated limbs and eyes that glowed with cold hunger. They didn't seem like shadows anymore, they were real, and they exuded an aura of malice. Quickly! The figure hissed, grabbing my arm. We must summon the barrier before they reach us. My mind went blank for a moment. I was lost in a panic as I watched the figures lurch closer, their arms stretching like inviting tendrils. What do I do? I stammered. Channel your energy, they instructed. The sigil and locket together can form the barrier, but you have to believe in your strength. I took a shaky breath. Channel my energy. I had never done anything like this before, not even when I faced the shadows. But I felt the heat of the sigil against my skin and the locket's warmth igniting the flicker of faith deep inside me. As the closest creature lunged, I raised the sigil and locket above my head. The air around me buzzed with a strange vibrancy, and I felt a rush of power surge through my core. A brilliant light erupted between me and the approaching doom. But just as quickly, doubt clawed at my heart. Would it be enough? Then I heard it, a soft whisper cutting through the cacophony. Trust your choice. That's when I realized I wasn't standing alone anymore. I could feel the figure beside me, their energy intertwining with mine. I wasn't just a child fighting on my own, I had allies I hadn't yet understood. We needed to act now. I focused on the light, amplifying it with every ounce of my resolve. But as the brightness expanded, a shriek pierced the air, freezing my blood. I turned to see the creatures recoiling, their expressions twisted in frustration, but they weren't backing down. The shadows were still there, waiting for a moment of weakness. What had I awakened? The brightness from the sigil washed over the figures, momentarily halting their attack. I felt their cold hunger clash against my light, but I didn't falter. The silver figure beside me radiated strength, their presence solid and grounding. Keep holding, they urged, their eyes locked onto mine. You're doing it. The weight of their word pressed down on me. I couldn't just hold, I had to push back. The creatures snarled, their twisted faces contorting in rage. I imagined their foul energy, hungry and desperate, clawing for my resolve. Suddenly, a dark shape moved in the corner of my vision. One of the creatures darted forward, faster than before. They weren't all held back. Panic surged through me as I realized the barrier might not hold. Focus on your heart. The figure yelled, breaking through my spiraling thoughts. You have to believe. I closed my eyes for a split second, the chaos around me fading away. Deep inside, I felt something shift, a warmth igniting my courage. With a renewed sense of purpose, I poured everything I had into the light. The air crackled with energy, and suddenly, it felt like I was no longer just pushing back, I was drawing the darkness into the light. The creatures screamed and recoiled, their forms flickering like flames disrupted by the wind. But then, the ground trembled beneath us as the fog swirled violently. The shadows coiled, harnessing their own deep ferocity. "That's it." The figure beside me urged. "Don't stop. They are drawing power from the fear in this realm." But just when I thought we might turn the tide, a deeper growl filled the air. A new presence emerged from the darkness, a figure larger than the rest, looming and terrifying. Its body shifted and swayed, a grotesque mockery of life, yet its eyes burned with an unsettling intelligence. "Who dares stand against me?" Its voice was a deep rumble, sending vibrations through my bones. My heart stalled. I choked out words, but nothing came. The silver figure squeezed my hand, urging me to respond. You feed on fear." I finally managed to say, my voice trembling. "I won't give you that." The entity laughed, a sound that reverberated through the very air, drowning out the frantic whispers of my mind. "You think that by resisting, you're safe. You have already captivated my interest. You are just a whisper away from despair." Doubt flooded back in, choking my resolve. Was I truly safe? What would happen if I lost my light? The shadows began to swirl more fiercely, feeding off my hesitation. "Don't listen," the figure cried. "You have to remember your strength." I pulled my focus back to the sigil and locket, still aglow in my grip. There was something special about that warmth. They weren't just relics, they were parts of a promise I made to myself. I could do this. Breathing hard, I concentrated on that promise. "If you want me, you'll have to come through me." The words came out louder, steadier, igniting a fire within me. The entity's laughter faltered for just a moment. Then everything shifted. The darkness lurched, bending under the weight of my determination, but it also pushed back. I could feel the boundary of the barrier straining. And then I heard it, a faint crack, like a twig snapping in the dead of night. My stomach dropped. What had I unleashed? My heart raced as the crack echoed louder, the oppressive weight of the darkness closing in around me. The larger entity's triumphant laughter ricocheted off the walls of the strange realm. My grip around the sigil and locket tightened as I felt the flicker of resolve waning. I can't let them win. With a surge of will, I pushed every ounce of strength into the light radiating from the locket. The warmth spread through me like a current, lifting my spirit. I could feel the bond between the sigil and locket pulsating in harmony, like two hearts beating as one. "That's it. Feed the light," the silver figure shouted, their voice breaking through my panic. I opened my eyes and locked my gaze on the encroaching darkness, channeling every fear, every doubt into resolve. "You will not have me." The shadows writhed in response, the atmosphere electric with a mix of terror and defiance. The air shimmered as if charged with unearthly energy. The barrier pulsed, the light expanding outward, engulfing the tendrils of darkness that dared to creep closer. The monstrous entity roared, its voice filled with rage and frustration. "You dare defy me? You're nothing but a flickering flame against the onslaught of night." But I stood firm. I am not alone. I carry the whispers of those who came before me, my grandmother, my family. They give me strength. As the shadows recoiled, a surge of strength coursed through me. The memories of my childhood, of the whispers that haunted and guided me, flooded my mind. Amidst the thrumming chaos, I began to chant names, their names flooding the space with their essence. Mary. William. Hannah. The syllables rose like an incantation, weaving through the vast emptiness. The creature began to tremble, its form distorting as if caught in a tempest. "Stop. You cannot." "But I wouldn't stop." I poured my heart into the light, merging my will with the voices of my ancestors. The glow of the locket intensified, illuminating the entire realm, banishing the shadows that plagued me. The ground beneath us shook violently, and with one final push, I shouted, "Release your hold." In an explosion of light, a shockwave reverberated through the realm. The creature shrieked, its form fracturing into 1,000 flickering shadows that scattered into oblivion. For a moment, there was silence. I opened my eyes, breathless, scanning the now quiet space. Heat radiated from the sigil and locket, intertwining like threads of fate. Had I done it? Had I freed myself from the darkness? But then I felt an unsettling presence lingering at the edge of my senses. The silver figure turned to me, their voice grave. The echoes may have been vanquished, but the choice you made will always linger. What do you mean? I questioned, confusion tightening my chest. You've faced the shadows of your past, but the true battle lies ahead. You need to navigate the path you've chosen, an existence where darkness and light coexist. Something worse than shadows might remain, waiting without resolve. My stomach sank, and anxiety twirled in my gut like the remnants of a storm. So I'm not free. A fleeting smile crossed their hidden face. You are more free than you know. You've unlocked something inside yourself. But what awaits in the depth of your journey remains uncertain. The realms are interconnected, their echoes forever reminding you. With that, shadows flitted through the fog, glimmering with fleeting memories. They whispered my name, a gentle reminder of what I fought for. The weight of those names rested on my heart, a tether and a warning, all at once. The question of what lay ahead lingered in the air. I took a deep breath and nodded. A decision had been made, but the way forward was still clouded in uncertainty. It changed everything: how I saw myself and what it meant to coexist with my past. I might have emerged from that darkness, but the storm within was still brewing. As I looked into the swirling fog, the silver figure gestured toward a path that seemed to stretch into infinity. Are you ready to step forward? I glanced back one last time, my heart heavy with unanswered questions. I wanted clarity, a neat resolution. But perhaps it was the ambiguity, this delicate dance between light and shadow, that truly encapsulated the essence of life. With renewed determination, I grasped the locket tightly in my hand, and stepped into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever came next.